Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. I said this the other day. I couldn't really believe it. 135 episodes, episode 135 of the HA free webinar series. We've got our dear friend and champion auctioneer, Scotty Gibbs, with us today. Jason Ledlow, Trevor Nelson. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Obviously, if you're watching this live, thanks so much. This is a very interactive webinar. If you haven't been with us before, questions are always welcome. Comments, the whole nine, agree, disagree. We got a chat function and a Q&A function at the bottom of the screen to serve that. If you're watching this as a recording, do us a favor, leave us a comment on YouTube, subscribe, don't leave without subscribing, and share it with someone in your network if you don't mind. And we'll have everybody out of here in under an hour. We're very respectful of your time. Stay to the end of the episode because we're going to give away an item that you can use as a revenue enhancer. This is another part of our revenue enhancer series. And today we're specifically talking about something called the last champion. Now, a lot of folks might not know what the last
Dude, you
champion.
just blew that whole thing up. We had all this cool stuff planned, and Trevor just messed it all up.
What? I haven't even gotten to the good part yet.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, well, cool. Well, if y'all saw it on the the invites and the teasers and what have you for the webinar, there was a situation where this concept was used to raise $11,000 with a YETI Cooler. That's right.
Well, that's what you're supposed to see. You guys, we rehearsed this whole thing, and see, this is what I deal with on a daily basis. Trevor goes his own way.
Yeah.
See, we had all this cool stuff. We were going to make all this really cool thing. We rehearsed it all. Scotty and I got it all down. We were ready to go on our keys, and he just threw it all off. Because
did I miss that pre-production meeting? I'm really sorry. Maybe I'm working too hard, man, and I need some time off because I'm tired.
I'm just telling you.
But hey, let's get to the point. Quit giving me a hard time. Let's talk about this YETI Cooler and how you raised $11,000 with it. What is it? What is it with the YETI Cooler?
So I used to do what Scotty does, not as well as he does, but I used to do charity auctions, did it for a long time. And I'm doing an event. It was kind of a last minute thing. This client, the auctioneer that was set up to do it couldn't do it. He had something, it just was a scheduling thing. They asked me about, it was probably 2 weeks before the event. I said, yeah, I'll go help you. And they got in, had the lineup of everything. And one of the things that they had in the auction was a YETI Cooler with about a 12-pack of beer and some doodads, some hats and bottle openers and stuff like this. It was a little party pack kind of thing.
And a koozie. Yeah.
And I said, well, this is a live auction. Everything else in the live auction was like $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 items. And I said, well, you know, the YETI Cooler is like a $500 thing. She goes, yeah, I know, but maybe it'll bring $1,000. And I was like, okay. Well, it just so happened that a week, 10 days before that, one of our team members, Mark West, was telling me about how Scotty Gibbs had done this thing called the Last Champion. And he had taken an item out of a silent auction and raised, I don't know, $5,000, $6,000 with it, something that would have brought 500. And I thought maybe this would work. I've never done this in 30 years of doing charity auctions. I had never done it. So I called Mark. He walked me all through it, said, this is what he does. This is Scotty's, we set it up, and this is how it works. I did it. And instead of $1,000, it brought $11,000. Now, I'm not going to get into all the stuff of how it works because that's why we have the man here. We said, let's bring the guy that does it and does it very well here. So, Scotty, would you just tell everybody how an auctioneer that's not like me that could possibly, sell something and it brings $11,000? Would you tell the secret of what that is?
All right, sure will. First of all, thanks for allowing me to be on the show today, and always an honor and a privilege. Before I get started, I see Tom Suma on. Just a shout out to Tom. Hey, my friend, I haven't seen Tom since 2018. I believe we were in Denver, so just want to say hi to Tom. And
HGA team member Tom, HGA team member, of course. Yeah.
So, so the Last Champion wasn't something I created. I wish I would have and had a copyright on it because it's a great product. But where I learned about it was the National Auctioneers Association Benefit Auctioneer Specialist course. as well as Janelle Taylor's Benefit Auction Boot Camp.
Oh.
Two great schools to go to if you're a
Gala
benefit
gal.
auctioneer.
Yeah,
Yep,
I know
Gala gal,
Janelle.
Janelle Taylor.
Yeah.
Hey,
And,
Scotty, could you turn your volume up just your microphone a little bit? It's just really not coming in very loud.
Thanks, brother.
Coming in very loud. Okay.
Hey, no, I haven't heard that name in a little while. Janelle Taylor, the Gala gal, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. How about now, Jason? Test one.
That's a little better. Yeah, maybe just talk a little louder.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit louder. My wife's always telling me I'm way too loud. So, let me throw in another AirPod. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, if you got it up to a 10, if you could squeeze that to an 11, no, I'm joking.
All right. How's that? How's that with that extra one in?
Yeah, it seems a little better. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Scotty.
All right. So again, I learned about it through National Auctioneers Association Benefit Auction Specialist School, as well as Janelle Taylor's Benefit Boot Camp. They both do it. I've seen numerous auctioneers across the country that do it and have great success with it. So the Last Champion, one of the key pieces about the Last Champion is it is not a game of chance. So it's not a raffle.
Okay.
It is a game of timing. And that's the real key piece. It's a game of timing. And it's also a game of choice. You are making the choice to be the last donor and the last champion, right? It's completely within your control, which makes it a great game. But basically how it works is the last donor to make a donation at the level the auctioneer is at, when the auctioneer says SOLD, sold, and they have to say all of that, SOLD, sold, then that is going to be the last champion. Typically, we start out at $100 level. And before we get started, I'll just kind of raise this up. I have a slide that I provide to the nonprofit that has all of the rules of how to play Last Champion. And so I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that up on the screen.
Oh, okay, so that, cool. Well, how to?
So that, yeah, everybody can see it, right? It's on the screen.
This is how you play Monopoly. Here you go.
This is how you play Monopoly. In addition to that, I also like to do a kind of a practice round, if you will. And I'll reach over to my right hand side and I'll say, "Ma'am, would you be so kind to hold your donor card up?" And she'll hold her donor card up, and I say, "So donor 135 has now donated $100 at the $100 level, and she's our last champion." So that's donor 135. Then over here on my left-hand side, I say, "Sir, would you hold your donor card up?" And he's number 287. Okay. So now donor 287 has held his donor card up. He just donated $100, and he's now the last champion. So collectively, we have donated $200, one side, the other side. But before I can say SOLD, sold, "Ma'am, would you be so kind to raise your donor card one more time?" And she raises hers. And that's back to 135. I said, "Awesome. Donor 135 has now raised her donor card the second time. She's made a second donation of $100, and she is now our last champion." So it's really important that you know that every time you raise your donor card throughout the game, you are making an additional donation. And the last person to make the donation at the level the auctioneer is at is the last champion. And so we'll do the $100 level if things are going well. Let's say you do 15 donors at the $100 level. Maybe that's when you decide to go to 250.
Mm-hmm.
And you take maybe 5 to 10 at 250, and then you go to 500, then 750, then 1,000. Kind of look at it as a reverse mission give, or paddle raise, funded aid, whatever you're doing. And that's another good place to put it in, is in your mission give.
Okay.
Whatever, as you go reverse down through your levels, right? You just did the 250 level. Now you're at the $100 level, and you say, "Ladies and gentlemen, at the $100 level, we're going to play this amazing game called Last Champion." And then that's when you explain the rules, and then you do the 100, and then you kind of go back up through your levels of donation. And amazingly, what I have found, and Jason probably experienced the same thing whenever he did it, is there may be donors that did not donate in the fund of need as you came from that 1,000 to
Very
750, 500, 250 level. But as you start going, they will get in and donate as you go up through those levels.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's real interesting that you brought that up, because I did it again. The one time I've done it in ever, and I'm retired now, so I'll never do it again. So I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. And so I did it at the end of the fund of need.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing is the lady that wound up being the last champion was also a $10,000 donor.
Mm-hmm.
So under normal circumstances in that I've ever done a fund of need, once somebody gives 10,000, they're done. They're never going to do anything again.
Mm-hmm.
It was a YETI cooler with a 12-pack of beer.
Yeah.
And a couple of bottle openers and a koozie. It was just, I mean, it is what it is, but it wasn't about that. It went away from being, I'm going to, try to get my deal. And when I first started this thing, there were 15 hands that went up. And then once they kind of did, and then they'd come down and then one would go up and then one would come down, and this one, and then this one. And it kind of went back and forth, and $11,000 at $100 a piece, it takes a little bit. Yeah. But the amazing thing was, once she got on, she was never going to stop. I mean, it was kind of that way. We'd go SOL, and about time I'd go D, and then somebody would pop one up. And then somebody else would, and then somebody, and then it would go 3 or 4 times, and then she would come back and be to do it.
Definitely so competitive aspects for sure.
It was because, and if and Scotty will probably point this out, if you've everybody, we could have collected, literally, you could have somebody who raises their bid and they raised it 30 times, okay, at $100 a piece, $3,000. And they finally just go, I'm done. And one person raises it one time for $100 and they win. And so that's the way it is. So it is really kind of funny, the psychology that goes on with people, because somebody goes, well, I'm in at $3,000. I'm not going to quit now. I want something for it.
That's sweet. That's so sweet.
Thanks, Bev.
That's a really sweet thing to say, Bev. Hey, Scotty, I'm fascinated, as I'm sure a lot of folks are. We have this conversation always, pretty much every episode in one form or fashion, about timing. If we're talking about events specifically, you have so much experience with this, and it's not going to be an opinion, because once again, everything that you're saying about this is rooted in experience and so much success. But are you telling the audience unequivocally, do the last champion after the fund of need?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome.
I like it. I like it as the last level, that $100 level.
Cool.
Well, awesome. And the other thing is, it's kind of
I love that.
It's kind of the summation of it. You've had all the stuff, you're going down the deal, and it puts that energy, because whenever I finally said SOLD sold, it was a standing ovation. Not for me, for the donor that won it. I don't know if you've seen that too. It was just an incredible experience all the way around. But that's what I found. Is that something, when you give us some examples of other ones that you've done, a big, little, shorter, tall,
please.
Done, Scotty.
So these work well at small events.
Okay.
And they work well at large events. So they're going to work no matter where you're at in the process. But I think one of the key pieces to understand about it is going to take a little bit of time. Okay. Jason, when you did it, do you remember how many minutes? And it sounds like you went on the $100 level the whole way. How many minutes?
I think it took 15. I think it took 10 or 15 minutes. And it was, but here's the interesting thing. I'm always time sensitive when it comes to raising money.
For sure.
It did not, it took that long, but it didn't feel like it.
It was
That's
engaging.
One of the things I would say,
yeah.
Because the entire room got engaged because they were seeing who's going to do it. And, by the time I explained it, went through the little pre thing that I said, now, if that means if you raise your number 10 times, you're going to give 100 each time. And I went, really made sure they understood. And I didn't do your deal, which I would if I were going to do it again,
Yeah.
just to play it out. But I thought it went fast, emotionally, because everybody was clapping and somebody would pull up their deal, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so had no idea, and I had no idea how much money we raised. I truly lost track because I'm just calling numbers out and talking, Are you sure you don't have any more in you? You've raised your hand.
This cooler is pretty cool. It keeps ice cold for 3 days. Come on now.
Yeah, exactly. And so give us some other examples where you've done this. Maybe the item and what it was.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm talking
I was going to
about
say the same
$600. Again, a YETI cooler's $500, 12 pack of beers. $15 and all the other stuff. It wasn't $600 worth of stuff.
How deliberate are you about that and the value of the item that you grab from the silent auction table, Scotty? And like, I'm going to ask a stupid question. Is it like you grab that item and you close the bidding in the silence? Just give us the mechanics there, just for folks that have never heard this concept of this revenue enhancer before.
Right. Well, a lot of nonprofits will actually close the silent before the live auction starts. Right. Because they close the bar, close the silent, they don't want any distractions. They want everything focused on the mission give. Sometimes we do the mission give before the live auction. Sometimes we do it after. It works well both ways. It just kind of depends on what you're doing, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But a lot of the distractions are taken away so we can just focus on that. And as far as the item goes, like Jason was saying, it can be an array of things. I think the key is probably that $500, $600, $700, maybe up to $1,000, right? Wide appeal. Everybody in the room is going to want that item, and if you've got wide appeal, and you've got a good value item that it's like, oh yeah, I don't mind, going 3 or 4 rounds of that of $100 each, trying to get that, because it's worth every bit of it, or 6 or 7, or maybe I'll drop, I'll go 10 times, for $1,000, right? Because I know it's worth $1,000, right? And if we all have that mindset, if I'm willing to go 1,000 at $100 each, and Trevor's willing to go 1,000 at 100 each, and Jason's willing to do the same thing, well, that's $3,000.
Now we're logging
between the three of us, right?
Yeah.
On a $600, $700, $800,000 type item. So if it's $1,000 item, it was donated. Now we've tripled our income on it, so our profits. So I think that's the key thing is wide appeal, and that's going to vary between crowds, between audiences, right? Just depends on who you're selling for. And so example that I've go ahead, Jason, you got a question?
No, please go ahead.
No, please. Yeah.
So I've got a client that we're coming up here in a couple of weeks, and we had a Zoom meeting with him yesterday, what we call our landing meeting, going into the final approach and making sure we're all on the same page and that sort of thing. And they said, hey, by the way, we've got this rare $1,000 bottle of bourbon that was donated.
Perfect.
Do we put it in the silent auction or do we put it in the live auction? And the first thing that I think of, well, how about the last champion? And I explained that to them, and they're like, oh my goodness, I love that.
Yep.
And there just happened to be a guy on the committee that had seen me in another city do it, and he is like, I saw you over there and it was amazing, right? And like Jason was saying, I think what makes it amazing is the delivery of how it's accomplished, right? And we're auctioneers, and so many in the fundraising business call us auctiontainers. And we have to be that. I mean, you've got to.
Well, you have the microphone.
some of the things that Jason was saying about the item, or come on, you got another 100 in there, or it's for a great cause, and talk it up and have some fun with the audience. A lot of times I like to get off the stage. If I can, I'm on a wireless microphone. I like to get off the stage and get out to the audience and literally stand right there and have that conversation with them on the mic. Come on, one more time. This is an amazing item. You're you've already donated 9 times, but one more, let's seal the deal. What do you say? And promote getting that extra $100.
Love it.
Scotty, do you because we're talking about when it starts kind of getting, do you find it the way that I did, where it would be like SOL, and then all of a sudden somebody would bid, and then 3 or 4 more people would go, and then it would kind of level off again. The one person that stayed, she would raise her bid again, have it, and then it would kind of it was kind of like this. And when I say lull, I'm talking, seconds, not minutes. I don't mean that, but that's the way I found it was. It was real interesting to me the way that, once when one person did, because, we were saying, oh, just one more time, it's a good cause. Somebody I'm not even talking to hears it and raises their hand, raises it. So it was real interesting to me.
Yeah. I agree.
You said something when we were talking about, whenever I was talking to you about coming on to do this, and I hope I say it the way that you said it. No auctioneer, it doesn't matter who you get, cannot match, could never sell that item for that much money is what it will bring in the last champion.
Yeah.
100%.
And I thought that was really good.
Poignant. Yeah.
And, because it's not so much about the item. It's about giving them an opportunity to possibly get something back, gamifying that deal.
The people. Yeah. The
but
fun.
There are people that would not give $100. We've been doing this, Scotty and I have been doing this for a long time. We've seen it. There's people that won't give $100 in your event because they just showed up. They were a guest. They really don't know the mission. But they see this and they get caught up in it, and they will with this strategy where they weren't, they don't have the capability to give 10,000 or 5,000, but at 100, they will do it. And, we've done stuff like paddle drops where you try to get everybody in the room to put a deal in, but it's not anywhere near what this does. It's just a really good strategy. But let me ask you this. Yeah. So with every awesome success story, somewhere in the back, there's a train wreck.
We have some do's and don'ts we want to share with folks.
I really got fortunate that the one time I did it in my life, it worked out really well. So I know that you may have had a train wreck or two. Give us an idea of whenever things don't go quite so well.
Yeah, absolutely. And
a lesson learned from that, I guess.
Right. So a train wreck would be, is there a lot of volume in the room that the crowd is having a hard time hearing? Okay. So, for example, we were at this event one time. It was at a beautiful resort, but we were not in the resort in the ballroom. We were in this outdoor big canvas tent kind of a thing. It had these big air handlers, and it was creating a lot of external noise. These air handlers were. We tried to explain it, thought we did a pretty good job, and it went well. It was a very successful last champion. But afterwards, we heard from the nonprofit that, there were a couple of donors. They were a little upset. They didn't really understand what was going on, and we don't want to do that again. And I'm like, okay, that's understandable. So I think making sure everybody understands, if you got a loud environment, like I said, have this up on the screen, and that way everybody can see it. You've gone through some examples, and all as well. In addition to that, I think it's also, think about an auctioneer and a ringman team being in a tie bid situation. We never want to be in a tie bid situation, right? We always want to know where the money's at, who's on, and no ties, right? Or at least Scotty Gibbs feels that way. And so I think it's important that, let's just say that Jason, I've got you on one side of the room, Trevor, I've got you on the other side of the room. One of the things that I do in my stage book is, whenever the donors give, I will write down each donor. I've got it right up there on my stage book. I've got a page that's dedicated to the last champion, and I know who's donated, and then I use hash marks to know how many times they've donated. And then once we change levels, I draw a line, and it kind of starts over, right?
Okay.
And so if Jason had donated 5 times along the way at $100 each. And let's just say, Trevor, you were in at 600, 6 times at 100 along the way.
Mm-hmm.
I would make sure before I sold out, I would say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm right here with Trevor Nelson. He's donated 6 times. We're, Jason over here. I just want to come back to you, Jason, and say you have donated 5 times. I want to thank you on behalf of XYZ nonprofit for everything that you've done. We're so grateful you're here. But I just want to know you are out. You're not the last champion right now. And if you could just find it in your heart to open your wallet one more time and do that extra $100, right? So I'm giving him an opportunity. So he can't walk away really upset about it that I didn't give him an opportunity and clarify where we were at and what was about to happen when I sell out to Trevor, and not give him that opportunity. Because let's face it, the environments are noisy. You kind of get lost sometimes, and you just want to make sure you've got that clarity and fidelity along the way to keep everybody on the same sheet of music. And I bet 9 times out of 10, when I have that conversation with Jason, he's raising that paddle one more time.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I love the idea of the numbers and the hash marks, so you can tell how many times they've done it, because what in my experience, which is one time, and I'd like to hear you, does it typically get down to the same, I'm going to use a random number, 10 people that are kind of battling back and forth, and then it kind of gets down to 5, and then 4, then 2, and then finally you just have 1. You may have some rando person pop up out of nowhere for one time because they're trying to snipe it. But for what I saw, the people that had been going back and forth weren't going to they're not going to let somebody snipe them at this point. It doesn't matter if this, and like I said, the top person, I think it cost her $5,000.
Let me piggyback on that question.
She paid $5,000 for a Yeti cooler with a 12-pack of beer and she was elated. I mean, she standing up going, yes.
Best beer she's ever drank. It's the best beer she's ever drank. The ice is still cold. No, Scotty, I want to piggyback on that question as well, like a 1B as well. Do you have someone like, and I'm using the term loosely, like clerking, like a volunteer or a committee, someone from the staff or even a team member of yours writing down those numbers as well? Because I know you're so involved with the microphone. Sometimes you're in the crowd, you're entertaining, you're inspiring the giving, all of these things at one time. Do you have a backup person writing these numbers down as well? And you've coached them up on the hash mark concept and all the mechanics of this? Yeah.
That's an excellent question. And let me just, anyways, that's an excellent question. And with the nonprofits, so when I bring a team in, I'm going to bring an auctioneer, myself, and typically 2 ringmen, maybe 3, depending on the size of the event. But I tell them we're there to take care of the auction and the fund and need in the sense of encouraging, thanking. We're in the action part of it. We do not record. And what I need you as a nonprofit to do is I would like 3 recorders. And when I say 3 recorders, I'm talking about 3 separate people with 3 separate pens and pads, because I had a nonprofit. 3 sets of ears, because I had a nonprofit one time. They had 3 people. One of them had a pad and pen, and the other 2 were talking and distracting the process. So 3 separate people, 3 separate pens and pads. And
make them non-sociable, people that don't like people, where they're cantankerous. They won't get, just because it happens. And the reason, so if I may just dovetail on that,
Absolutely.
the reason you want, because somebody's going to come up and start talking to one of them, and they're going to leave they're going to forget, put their stuff down and run off because they've got a problem. Something's not working, and some credit card machine's not working, and they're the one that does the credit card.
Precisely.
It's just always something goofy like that.
Yeah. And that's a key piece you just said right there, Jason, is they are dedicated to that task. That is what their task is. If there's any other running and putting out a fire, it's not those 3 people. Those 3 are dedicated to that task. To add to that, you also want to make sure that the recorders understand every time a donor raises their paddle, it is an additional donation. because I was watching a recorder one time, they weren't writing down, and I looked over at them and I said, that was donor such and such for, whatever level we were at. And they're like, oh yeah, we've already got them.
They already gave.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, no. Every time I call out their number, it's an additional donation, right? Oh, one of those situations. So that's a key piece, because otherwise you're leaving money. You're leaving money on the table, right? You're not recording it.
Yeah. Yep.
So
that's great.
So that's a key piece right there. And kind of going back to Jason's, so it was kind of a two-part question.
Yes, thank you, Scotty.
Going back to Jason's question, you're right. It's kind of like a reverse pyramid. There's a whole lot going on at the beginning, and as we narrow down, there may be a few, right? And there are some occasional those that are going to try to slip in right there at the end and just for $100, right? And here and there, but I've been pretty fortunate to work with some very generous donors. And if I haven't raised the level just yet, let's say I'm at $100 and we've taken 15 to maybe 25 donations, I'll have one of them look at me and give me a 5 or a 2 or, whatever. And at that point I said, ladies and gentlemen, we just had an amazing, generous donor number, and I recognize them by number, raise us to the $500 level. And so for every donation from this point on, thank you, Jason, donor 287, you have just raised the bar to $500 per donation. Thank you. And then, take it from there.
So let me ask you this: what happens if, and I'm being devil's advocate because I know guys that play this game all day long. Yeah. You start off at $100 and it gets to me and I go 500.
Yeah.
Would you raise it at that point, or would you just keep it at 100 and keep going?
Good question.
So that's a good question, right? So most of the time, that donor has probably already donated 3 or 4 times at the $100 level. We're probably around that 15 to 20 mark on donations at the $100 level before someone is inspired to raise it to the next level. Yeah. I have not had it happen to where we're like 3 donations in and somebody says 500, and at that point, I would say that I would probably say, Jason, I'm grateful that you want to go to $500, and I want you to hold that thought. Right now, I'd like a few more people to have an opportunity at the $100 level, right?
Gotcha.
But I'll take your donation for the $100 level.
Good. Yeah. Hey, let me ask.
That's a delicate situation.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So, let me think. I want to make sure I ask this in the right way. So, or let me do it this way.
Yeah.
Give us some examples of what you've sold, what stuff has totaled, what the total has been for. Because I'm saying $11,000, I don't want anybody thinking that's going to be the norm, because I don't know that it is, but you would, because like I said, I've only done it once. So tell me kind of what you see, highs, lows. I know part of it depends on crowd, but what have you seen stuff do?
So that's a key piece you just mentioned. It depends on the audience, right? It depends on the item. It depends on the audience, their level of ability to give, that sort of thing. So there are some variables there. But what I've noticed consistently across the board is that, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying and how I said it. And what I said was, pick the greatest world champion auctioneer on the planet with the most beautiful chant you have ever heard in your entire life. And they are never, ever going to accomplish the level of success that they could have auctioneering that item that they would have with the last champion. It's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how powerful the last champion is. And so, so what I've found is you take that $500, $600, $700,000 level. I probably wouldn't go over $1,000 with the item. Try to stay, keep it something donated. But I have found that it is an exponential return on whatever that item would have brought at live auction, what it's worth and what it would have brought at live auction. So if it's $1,000 item, it may be $6,000, it may be $8,000. In Jason's scenario, it may be $13,000, right? But because kind of that depends on the crowd. But so in one scenario, you may have an item that does 5,000. You may have another item that does 15,000. But at the end of the day, it is going to be exponentially more than what you would have done with it in the live auction with the most talented auctioneer on the planet.
What's the least something's done that you've been involved with? Just to give us a
that's a good question. That's a good question. So so I'm the kind of auctioneer I'm all about helping nonprofits. So I help small nonprofits that may have a crowd of 100, maybe even 80, right? Kind of small crowd, or those that have 750, right? So what I have found is even in those small groups, it'll still at least triple what it's worth.
Okay. That's a good call. That's good.
Yeah.
So it's a $500 item in the silent auction. It'll bring in $1,500 worst case. Is what
at least,
found.
if not, maybe even 2,500. And then when you get into those bigger groups, that's whenever you can get into those 10,000 plus items.
I want to do two things. I want to have a call for questions because we got about 20 minutes left. Is everyone kind of tracking? I'm really fascinated by the whole thing. I think it's a fantastic revenue enhancer. It really fits the bill. Grateful for all the feedback, Scotty. You mean that immensely. Thank you so much. Any call for questions? If you want to ask anonymously, do it on the Q&A function. Name a couple items. Okay, cool. We can definitely do that. And then Scotty, I want, we're going to answer these questions, but I want you to hang on to something. Is the Last Champion something that you want to? I'm kind of really enthralled with advertising these days and letting folks know what's going to go on at the event and using that to your advantage in a myriad of ways and all that in promotion to get the right donors in the room and all that stuff and get the appetite for the event going.
Yeah.
So do you advertise the Last Champion? That's going to be part of the, it's going to be in the program. It's going to happen at this time. Like, just get in the nitty gritty with that, please.
Yeah. So I think communication is imperative in everything we do. So I would say have the rules. If you're playing heads or tails, or you've got a raffle, or you've got Last Champion, or whatever you're doing. The paddle raise, you've got a QR code. I mean, you've got all these things in the program, right? To where people can either QR code it or read about it and understand what it is, and it's not a surprise. So I'm more about having it in place and everybody knows what we're doing when we get to that point of the program.
Cool. Awesome. Love that. Yeah. So no surprises.
No,
it's coming.
No.
Okay, cool.
I'm kind of like an attorney. I want to know what the answer is before I ask the question.
Yeah. You want discovery. Yeah, exactly.
I've got a question. This was really good. We've
good
given
question,
a couple
Becky,
of items.
and it's good to see you. Sorry, that's Mo too.
Well, I'm gonna do Morgan's and then we'll come to Becky's. I was just gonna say, just to an idea, like mine. This was they had a Yeti cooler, a 12-pack of beer.
Now you got the bourbon option that you're doing an event in a couple of weeks. That's awesome.
Yeah. So what were some things, like you said, you had a $1,000 bottle of bourbon that was donated, and that's why this is about. You want to do something that's donated. Maybe there's something that you have, that you're looking. I know one deal, I don't know what it was, but, it was before the event. You guys really had just showed up to do the auction and you went and saw something and said, hey, we're going to take this out of the silent auction, and you used it for Last Champion. It was a $500 item, brings 5,000.
Yeah.
So it's not so, I think what you said was the real key. If I remember right, just make sure it's just broad for your crowd.
Yeah.
If it's a deal for a rehab, $1,000 bottle of bourbon may not be appropriate.
That's not the thing.
Know your audience. Know your audience.
Know your audience.
Know your audience.
So it's that kind of a thought.
If it's a church, we're not giving away a trip to Vegas. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Speaking of it, let me just. Trevor just said something.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I made that mistake before.
That's another key piece about Last Champion. So you just mentioned church, right? Okay. On some churches, some nonprofits, they see raffles as a game of chance, right? And they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about Last Champion. It's not a game of chance. It's a game of timing, right? I'm the last person to raise my paddle, and that's timing, not chance. And then secondly, I am in complete and 100% control of my decision to raise my paddle for the last time. And that's what makes it a beautiful game when you get into an audience that may not care for raffles. Hey, just real quickly, I see Kyle Lanner and Tim Dietz on the line. Hey, gentlemen, I just want to say hi to my good buddies from right here in the great state of Texas.
Right on.
All right, Jason.
Okay.
Back to you, sir.
So
awesome.
Becky's got two things.
I love the question, Becky.
I want to give you the first one. Hey, do you see anything starting less than 100, like at $50?
So I think that goes back to knowing your audience, right? If you think, so if you were going to do your mission give, paddle raise, fund a need, whatever you term it, if you were going to go to $50 as your last level of giving, then start at $50. That's fine, because you can always go up.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Becky, I know just enough about the events that you do. I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think so.
I think you need to be at 100, but but I think if you're doing a really small, tiny, Scotty talked to me about that one he did the other day, a very small event. They're trying to do something like that where it's going to, $50 is a big deal for everybody because it's not the typical donor crowd. It was maybe something specific.
So you started at 50 at that small event, Scotty, if we're to clarify?
So like that, the event that Jason just mentioned, that would have been a $50 event. It might have even been 25.
Sure.
Yeah.
And because you can always go up.
Yeah.
And again,
cool.
I think the key piece of what we do, and I talk about this when I get on stage, I talk about this while I'm on stage, and I talk about this whenever I'm concluding the event. And it goes something like this: ladies and gentlemen, every dollar counts tonight. Every bid counts tonight, every live auction, silent auction, every donation, every dollar counts. And we could not do what we do for XYZ nonprofit and have that success without you. So thank you for every time you open your wallet tonight.
Good for you.
And make
That's
that
awesome.
donation.
Right on.
I'm gonna hit Becky's second part because I'd really like to get Scotty's take on it. I'm gonna reserve what I think until after Scotty says.
He said.
So he said, so Becky's asking about, if you do your paddle raise, fund a need, whatever you want to call it, between the auction. Let's say you have 6 items, you sell 3. I think that's what she's saying, and then you do your fund a need, and then you finish up with 3 items. What do you think about that as a strategy? Because I heard you say do it either before or do it after, but I didn't hear you say anything about doing it in the middle.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? So historically, the paddle raise, fund a need, mission give has always been done at the end of the auction, and it's extremely successful there. And the only time we ask a client, or at least have that discussion or make that recommendation to move it to the beginning, is if their audience leaves early, right? Because let's say you're running a little bit late in the program, and then you get to the live auction and things are running a little bit late, and now your mission give is at the end. Well, we all know that for the live auction, there's going to be a smaller amount of participation percentage wise in the room than there would be with the paddle raise. That is 100% of our room that has the ability to participate at some level. Right.
Yeah.
And so that would be the recommendation, to move it to the front of the program to ensure that we have 100% of the audience having 100% of the ability to participate and not losing money because it was late and they left, kind of thing. So that's why we would recommend moving it to the front versus the back. But as far as being in the middle, have not done that. We had a group recently, they wanted to stop the auction and do some raffle draws in the middle, right? They kind of strategically busting it up, placing raffles. It worked. It didn't seem to have any problem with it, but I cannot say with experience that I put it in the middle. How about you, Jason? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm a really big person. I think about the energy and where it's at and momentum. Energy and momentum. Right. Those are things that I think about. When you get it, it's hard. Okay. I'm going to just tell you, doing what Scotty does is hard. Auctioneers that get out here and get up on stage that are good. There's some that aren't good, and I'm not going to talk about them, but the ones that are good that really when you get done, even though you sit there and go, the guy was only up there for 30 minutes, and
Exhausting,
it's
I'm sure.
hard because
Yeah.
it's emotionally you get involved
Yeah.
in it. And I know Scotty works from the time he walks in the door until he leaves. He's trying to raise you money.
Mhm.
But what I always felt like is momentum is you build up your momentum and you keep crescendoing up, and you want to finish up here.
Mhm.
Then you regroup them back,
Mhm.
and we kind of, get them back in the moment. And that's when we start the fund and need. Now you can do that either way, front or back.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're creating that deal where you've got to build that momentum once, then you bring them back in for the fund and need, and then you've got to build it again twice for the auction on the second time.
Yeah.
That's an enormous amount of energy emotionally. And I'm not talking about just the auctioneer. I'm talking about the entire room, because you're asking that for that emotion to build and to stop and to build. You ever watch a sporting event and the crowd's going and it's going crazy and everything's just loud, and then all of a sudden it goes flat? It's really hard for that crowd to get that energy again. It's just, so that's why whenever I see, and I'll give you an example of something. I did an event for a long time, or I went to an event as a participant, not as an auctioneer. And they would have, it was a fight night thing. And they would have a fight, and then they would auction off an item. And then they would have another fight, and then they would auction off an item. It's all guys, it's all stuff. And when they asked me to do it, the founder is the one that asked me, and I'd sat at his table for 5 years as a guest. And I said, yeah, of course I'll do it. But I said, however, I want to do the auction all at one time. Let's do it before the fights, and then we'll be done. And they tripled the money the live auction had ever done. And it wasn't because I'm some gifted auctioneer. It was because all the energy was there. We were able to build it up because, I'd watch auctioneers struggle after the third, fourth, fifth thing. Everybody's getting, drinking more cocktails and nobody's paying attention. You can't get it back. So it's about, attentiveness and energy. So that's where I feel about that. I know we kind of went off chasing a rabbit, but I think it's important in that. And it would be really tough to do the last champion, to get down to that moment, everybody's cheering, then go, okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's auction time once again, and here we go. It's just a weird thing. So my recommendation is do it front, back, but boy, splitting it in the middle is really tough.
Are you seeing Becky's follow-up question right there, guys?
And let me just say on with what Jason was talking about, that momentum in the room. So paddle raise and live auction, two completely different elements, right? And one of the things that we all know that we recommend before the mission give, paddle raise, fund and need, whatever you're calling it, is a short motivational video that pulls at the heartstrings, or a guest speaker that can come up and convey that same message, right? So the mindset is a little bit, the psychology of that is very different than a live auction. And I would want to kind of keep those separate. So front end or back end, but like Jason was saying, not start it, stop it, throw something in the middle and then back to it. I wouldn't recommend that. But at the end of the day, I've learned as a fundraising consultant, I make recommendations, and whatever the
someone else is making those decisions sometimes.
But here's the flip side of that. If everybody's used to it and it's been done that way for the last 10 years, maybe it's fine. I don't, and Becky, I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying, I'm just giving you an example. I'm just saying this is what the crowd goes through. Because like she said specifically, we want to end on a high note.
Becky runs a really successful event for a really, really special organization. Becky, just to clarify, I should know this. Do you do your paddle raise at the beginning before the live auction, or are you kind of interspersing the live auction items throughout the program? Is that the gist that I'm getting, just so we can understand the mechanics of your event, like time? We do our RTP at the end.
Yeah. So my recommendation would not to do, if you want to change it, do it at the beginning, like what Scotty said. And I've done both. I've never done where I thought, oh, that was the wrong thing to do. I've done both ways, and I don't think there's a wrong answer. I love what Scotty said about, kind of timing it to what your crowd's doing. But this may be something that, people have advocated to move it to the front because you're losing people, or
that's a good point.
I'm going to tell you, fundraising is like fashion.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that comes along that's new and it's hot and it's trendy and let's go try it,
Yeah, to that point, Jay,
point, I think
because there's a lot of information swirling around right now in the fundraising space that I think that can be a red herring for a lot of organizations and a lot of very creative fundraisers out there.
Yeah.
That where I think people will say that, oh, well, you don't need a live auction because the fund needs the greatest way to raise money. And we'll contend, and I want to get your opinion, Scotty, while we have you still for another 5 minutes.
We can give something. Scotty just did one. If they hadn't done a live auction, the organization would not have raised $55,000.
Okay. And I want to ask
another
$150,000
that he raised.
Yep. I got a couple sides of this.
Yeah.
I got it.
So there's three budgets then is what we're saying is kind of what I'm getting, what I'm pulling out of this conversation. We got a budget that we're appealing to with the fund and need. We got a budget that we're appealing to with the live auction, presupposing you have one. And we've got a budget that we're appealing to with the last champion. They're all disparate. They're all different budgets. And, so what I'm getting at is like timing is important, obviously, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater with certain revenue enhancers like a live auction, like a last champion, because you think it's going to pull money out of your fund to need or paddle raise. Right.
Well, there's not a finite amount of money in the room.
These are all different budgets and all different appeals. And I could also argue, like Scotty just sold these, $12,000, live auction items. Those folks were probably not going to give $12,000 in the fund to need. Maybe not all of them. Maybe one of them would. But but my point is this, they're different. They're all different. They're all different shapes, and the idea is to be open to all of them.
Your point, Trevor, is you're talking about being the three different things. And I made this comment earlier that there are people who will go to an event, will not give $100. They will
unless
not.
There's something to be gained.
But if it's gamified,
it doesn't mean they're not generous. It doesn't mean they're not generous.
Something to be gained.
Everybody sees them, and it's like, oh, I can give $100, and they're going to cheer for me. I'm telling you, there's something about it. People want to have that.
It's fun, and and like I said, Scotty, we're going to let you talk. Good luck, brother. Good luck with me and Jason.
So far as all the elements go, Trevor, like you were talking about, that it's kind of like a tool chest, right?
Yep.
You got your hammer, your screwdriver, your crescent wrench, your open box, your socket. They're all for something, right?
Yes.
And you need all of them.
Yes.
You need all of them.
Yes.
And so whenever we have all these different fundraising elements, what you're doing is finding a little something for everybody in the room.
Come on.
Because to me, whenever you walk away from a fundraising event, it's about having a great time, enjoying the fellowship, enjoying whatever was going on there, that sort of thing. Yep. And obviously it's for a great cause, right?
Yep.
And you want to feel good about the entire experience. And you need that, what I call the 500-piece jigsaw puzzle of fundraising to make it all work together and have a little something for everybody. So I like having a number of different elements. Your live auction, silent auction, bucket raffles, fund to needs, whatever. Just have something for everybody. Yes. And then, like Jason was talking about, when you get to raise that paddle, and you've got an auctioneer that's an auction-tainer and can say, ladies and gentlemen, wow, we just had donor number, and you give that individual credit for making a difference in the lives of others and a difference in the lives of that mission that night for that nonprofit. I'm telling you,
that's magic.
It's magic. It's this, it's this feeling inside, right, that we all get, and you just can't replace it. It's that energy, it's that feel good moment, and that's what it's all about. And when somebody walks away, and I've had many people say, I really love the way that auctioneer connected to the audience and connected to me and made me feel good about X, Y,
what
Z
I was
kind
doing.
of thing. And that's important. I did see. I want to go back to Becky. Becky's question. She says, specifically rated to the last champion, if you put it in the paddle raise, would you wrap it up with the last champion standing, or would you hold it to the last champion till after the final packages? And so for me, I like using the last champion as the last level of the paddle raise or mission give or fund to need. So when we get to that $100 level, that's where I like to use that person.
Cool. Kyle, thanks for the feedback there, brother, as well. I appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Some give to give and others give to get. And guess what? They're all generous. They're all giving at the end of the day. It doesn't make them bad. That's my point. Jason and I talk ad nauseum about this, about people throwing the baby out with the bathwater and perfectly good opportunities to raise money. And they go, no, we're just not going to do that because the fund to need is all free money and the yada, 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 yada. And listen, not every event is a bunch of billionaires in Silicon Valley that already have everything that they want. They're just going to give. They're just going to straight give. That's not the scenario. That's not the landscape that we're operating in right now. So no, appreciate the feedback, Kyle.
Hey,
last call for questions.
We're gonna have to wrap this. I hope if you got a question, get it in real quick.
Well, we got to do it again. We got to do it again, Scotty.
I'm gonna get a winner. I've got a winner because we told you if you stay to the end and win, and we always promise we'll get you out of here on time.
Cool.
Natasha Kurth. Everybody give Natasha a big hand.
Natasha, where are you tuning in from? Let us know the name of your organization and where you're at. Thanks so much for joining us. That's awesome.
So hey,
Scotty, gold, brother. Gold.
Thank you so much. We're going to send a copy of this, a recording of this. Please do us a solid favor. Please share this with somebody else who needs to hear this in the fundraising world, another fundraising professional. That's our whole goal of this, is just to give out more information to help you raise more money. Scotty, thank you so much for coming and sharing your time with us. Man. We really appreciate it. And all of you guys that came on today, thank you so much. If you're watching this on YouTube, give us a comment if you agree, disagree. If you like what you're doing, we'd love to hear it. And
don't leave without subscribing. Thank you so much for doing it. Yeah,
really
cool. Question. Scotty, we're glad to know you, brother. Thanks so much.
Oh yeah, we'll send these too. Scotty sent these to me already. We'll attach these to the email that'll go out. Okay.
Let me. I'll send you one more file, the recording sheet. I sent you the how-to, but I'll send you the recording sheet.
Awesome.
Scotty, we're so grateful for the time. You know that, brother. Thank you so much. I know everyone got a lot of value out of this. Thank you. We'll see you all next week for episode 136. Same time, same channel, next Thursday. Have a great rest of the week. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, brother. Thanks, Scotty. Talk to everybody later.
Great seeing y'all. Beverly, thanks for coming. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
That's awesome. Thanks, bro.